Hi and welcome to the World Cup show. And it's Group B today, and we have Andrew back again. Hi Andrew, how you doing?
Hello Rob. Not bad, thanks. Not bad. How are you doing over there?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. You're a family man, so I appreciate your time.
No worries. No problem at all.
So we're looking at Group B, and we've got Iran, Morocco. Iran are ranked 33rd world, Morocco 4th. Yeah, I think most people would say Spain is the countries now, and I like that. So, we'll start with Iran.
Well, yeah, I think actually it's a good place to start because we've got Morocco around the first game of the group. Like you say, Spain and Portugal, you'd be amazed if it wasn't those two going through. But in a weird way, I kind of prefer the deciding fixture of the group. I prefer it to be later in the group, preferably the second or third game. But Portugal, Spain, first day. Morocco, Iran, there's quite a lot riding on for both countries, I'd say, because that's their one chance to really remain in with a shout of going through. So there's a lot of pressure on day one already. The thing is, Morocco, I'd say World Cup '98 was when I was last sort of familiar with a lot of their names. Yeah, it's been some time, hasn't it? You remember when they had Noureddin Naibet at Deportivo, and they had Yusuf Hadji playing in England, and they had some recognisable names. I'm not saying they're a poor side now, they have some talented players, but there's so much riding on this fixture that that 15th of June is going to be huge for Group B, basically, I think.
Now, you said it would be better, I suppose, if this was in the deciding fixture, but in many respects, Morocco and Iran playing each other the opening game, there's a chance for one of them to gain some momentum.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for them, I'd say it's probably better for Morocco and Iran to play early because, like you say, at least one of Portugal, Spain, of course, will drop points. So the winner of Morocco-Iran, they can really put on a lot of pressure for the second game because that's all you need. You need two results, basically. Yeah. But the thing is that I think I think that's the danger of these two. A lot of people will write them off because of who the other two in the group are. Morocco have a seriously good defence. They didn't concede. I think in the last 6 or 7 qualifiers, they didn't concede at all. Their manager Hervé Renard is an African expert. He's won African Cup of Nations with Ivory Coast and Zambia.
That's right.
He's a very talented coach. So, the problems will come from these two teams.
Yeah, Morocco have some key players as well. Actually, we're diverting. We've gone from Iran to Morocco. Let's get back to Iran. Now, I was surprised Iran are ranked higher than Morocco. A lot of the time, these rankings are purely to do with fixtures played and friendlies. So,
yeah,
in my head on paper, I would tip Morocco as favourites, but I did notice the Iran coach is the former Man United coach, Carlos.
Mr. himself, yes.
And there's a player that plays for Ruben Kazan that I thought I'd ask you about.
Yeah. Sardar Azmoun he's their star man. He's a really strange one, really, because he's got some characteristics that really stand out. For me, his heading and aerial ability is absolutely incredible. I would really rank him amongst the best in the world at getting on the end of crosses. His leap is just phenomenal. He's only 21, 22 years old, and he's already had quite a lot of controversy in his career. He was at Rubin Kazan as a 17-year-old, and then he effectively went AWOL to force a move to Rostov to join Kurban Berdeyev. Berdeyev went back to Rubin, and back went Azmoun again. And this kid scored a lot of goals for Iran. But he has quite a few injury problems, and he's even under Berdeyev, who has a good relationship with him at club level. He's not actually had a lot of first choice places in the starting lineup in this season, which is quite odd for me. But the point is, he's their danger man. He's got a really good instinct for scoring. His heading is phenomenal, and he's a very, very quick player. So he's definitely, for me, the man to look out for Iran.
Yeah, and often you'll find with a lot of these nations that their star man might not be a regular at club level, but they seem to save their best form for international football. There's been lots of examples in the past of players that do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd say that. I think Azmoun clearly revels in the spotlight. And when Rostov had their fairy tale season last season or whatever it was, and they got to, well, they beat Bayern Munich at home in the Champions League. Azmoun scored in that game on the big stage. He delivers, and that's the point. He's not a flaky, self-centered player in the sense that he just wants the higher wage. He does perform on the big stage, and there's nothing bigger than the World Cup, of course. So, but his scoring record is fantastic, and people need to remember that. Okay, yes, we've mentioned before, and we'll mention again. I'm sure Spain and Portugal, the big favourites, but Iran are Asian powerhouses. They're used to success. They're used to winning games. They have huge support. And they actually have one or two other players playing in Russia as well. So, they've got a lot going for them.
Yeah, and that could also be a factor as well. They've got a few players based in Russia. That can't be a bad thing. They also, the qualifying campaign, 18 matches unbeaten. Some of the standard of opposition is hard to gauge, really, but that's where it is. They didn't lose a fixture. So
yeah,
they'll be propping up the group we expect. I don't think we're talking 5s and 6s.
No, definitely not. I mean, whatever. I have mixed feelings about Carlos Queiroz personally as a Manchester United fan, but the fact is he was so highly respected by Sir Alex Ferguson, and he's been in charge for a while now at Iran, well, by international standards anyway. He'll set up the team extremely well in a well-organised fashion.
Is he a better coach than a manager?
I think he's one of those, yes. I mean, I'm just mildly off on a tangent for a moment. Alex Ferguson has chosen a lot of assistants who are brilliant coaches and then have tried to go on to be better managers. But Steve McClaren stands out, doesn't it? Brian Kidd is another. I mean, these are guys who are great tactical minds, and that's exactly what Ferguson needed. Yeah. I mean, Queiroz is well respected in his own right, so it's probably a bit dismissive to say he's not a good manager. Of course he is. He's done well with Iran, but Iran should be qualifying. It's not like it's anything more than should be expected from them. Yeah. But, look, the World Cup's a strange thing to predict. A league is consistent. You can read form. World Cup, it really entirely depends on the day, the mood, the form of players. Yeah. And Iran do have a lot going for them.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Andrew. We can sit and analyse, but at the end of the day, always there will be shocks and twists of events. Players can get injured in the run-up. We can. There's so many things that could turn up, and you always get one or two surprises each World Cup. So why not an Iran or a Morocco?
Yeah, exactly.
So on to Morocco, and I personally, my knowledge of international football isn't amazing with a lot of these so-called smaller nations, but there are 2 or 3 names in the Morocco squad that I know. Have you had a look at their squad?
Well,
the
for
Ajax
me,
player stands out.
I'm just having a little look at the squad list myself now, and you've got I'm not very good at pronunciation. I'm guessing Hakim Ziyech.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
I'll go with that for now. Yeah. But I mean, look, Ajax are perhaps not quite what they were 10, 15, certainly 20 years ago, but they are a side that play quality football. It's as simple as that.
They're still a decent team. They were in the final of the Europa League not so long ago. They're not, obviously, as you say, they're not Ajax of yesteryear, but it's not shabby, is it?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a great education for any player, no matter where you are. For me, if I had to pick out some players from Morocco that I'm particularly looking forward to seeing, one is Boussoufa, because he, again, is another player who played in Russia before, ridiculously talented attacking player.
I've never heard of this player, Andrew. So,
well, I mean, very, very brief outline, he played for Anzhi Mahachkala and Lokomotiv Moscow. And he only left Russia about 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was he went back to Genk or Ghent in Belgium. And when he arrived in Europe, he was in Belgium and he won some award for, I think it's called the Ivory Award, or it's an award for best African player in Belgium. And he is a player who can unlock defences. He's a temperamental player, but he's an extremely creative presence.
And what's his club team at the moment?
Well, it looks like he's playing in United Arab Emirates at the moment, Al Jazeera. I've got down on the list here. Yeah. But okay, I'll throw another name out there. There's Yunus Belhanda.
Yeah.
He's a name that a lot of European fans will be aware of, playing in Turkey at the moment.
There's a player who plays for Fenerbahce. Is it Nabir? I can't say his name at all. Nabir Diran, something like that.
I'll be honest. I'm not so. Yeah, I know we've done so well, so professional, aren't we? I know, but that in a way though, that demonstrates our point that we made earlier.
Yeah.
There were the relatively speaking, the unknown quantity of some of the players who won't be so familiar. That could be the danger.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who makes a World Cup squad has either got to have a lot of class or a lot of form. One way or the other, that could be dangerous. So. You would imagine, of course, all countries will do just religious scouting ahead of the World Cup of their opponents. They won't know nothing about them. But, when you see Cristiano Ronaldo every week in the Champions League, literally every facet of his life, professional, personal, the lot. You can gauge his mindset, perhaps. For some of these players we don't know so much about, they have a danger. These are players in the squad who people really have to watch out for, to be honest.
I was reading up on Morocco's style of play, and they like to sit back and play on the counter because they've got a fair bit of pace within the squad. Now, I'm just going to put this out there, but I'm in my opinion, I think Spain will win all 3 games, and I think Morocco-Portugal isn't cut and dried. Now, Portugal have got a very experienced team. But I'm just wondering if a team with a bit of pace and tactically set up well could cause Portugal some problems.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like I mentioned, I did some research into Hervé Renard about a couple of years ago, and he wasn't a successful coach in France. He is a native Frenchman, and when he managed. Was it Nice or Nîmes? One of the slightly off the beaten track Ligue 1 sides.
He's a charismatic guy, isn't he? He's
Well, he wears sharp white shirts, very well pressed, well dressed. Yeah. He's got flowing blonde locks. He's
like a Hollywood film star a little bit.
He does a bit. But like you say, his style is very much more containing. And Morocco have. But he's turned Morocco around. There's no two ways about it. They, like you mentioned, hadn't qualified for the World Cup for 20 years, and now they are one of the hardest teams to beat. I think, in fact, his first game in charge, I think he got a 0-0 draw against Ivory Coast, I think it was, and nobody was expecting that to come. No. The one thing, Rob, that really we should remember about all of the groups is people in their minds will think Russia equals cold. It'll be scorching hot during the summer. Yeah. And, I'm not saying they're the only type of country. I don't want to stereotype countries that they are capable of playing in heat, but it's the style of play. If they're defensive, they will drain the energy out of, high pressing, high intensity teams. Now Spain are not high intensity, but they do have a lot of the ball. They will need to keep their composure. They could easily end up getting to an hour gone, start getting frustrated, start getting tired, make mistakes, and I know we seem to have been favouring Iran and Morocco's chances here quite a lot, and I still do expect Spain and Portugal.
We have to give balance. I would probably go with Spain and Portugal, but I just feel Morocco could be a dark horse in that group, and that game with Portugal could be key.
There's one other thing I would mention about Morocco, and that is that they are, of course, they're bidding to host the 2026 World Cup. And I've been following their bid quite a bit, and they're putting in a hell of a lot of thought. Everybody assumed that the North American joint bid of USA, Mexico, and Canada was pretty much a shoo-in to win this World Cup, but they've been really sloppy. Vancouver have pulled out of that bid, and that really geographically, logistically is, other than Toronto, is the centre of football on the west coast of Canada. But Morocco's bid is looking pretty strong, and you can bet your bottom dollar that whoever in the squad will be told, you have got a lot of pressure on you, so they won't be high risk, but they will be hard to beat. So that is a little extra added motivation for them.
And I'm wondering if there's quite a big reward incentive as well for Morocco. Often Saudi Arabia a few years back, there was incredible rewards just for a guy scored a goal. There was a couple of goal scorers and all the rest of it. So that they often and they're playing. Their country means everything to them, and to go to the World Cup and put on a show and not sort of let the sort of be obliterated, it means a lot to them. I expect Morocco to be competitive, and Iran at least difficult to beat at least. So Portugal, the current European champions, which I love Portugal, so it's a great country, and I was rooting for them in the Euros when England went out. I was surprised Portugal won the Euros, to be honest, and I feel like their team is a little bit aging, and I don't see them, even if they get out of the group, I don't see Portugal doing too much this World Cup. Maybe quarterfinals at best.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. I'd go along with that. These two countries, Spain and Portugal, are heavyweights of world football, and like you mentioned, European champions. Portugal, Spain were world champions 8 years ago, and European champions twice around that either side. But there were cracks showing in both of them. I agree with you about the ageing squad of Portugal, but on the other hand, it's not a novel point, but Cristiano Ronaldo, the guy is just on possibly the form of his life, and that's at the age of 33. And he alone, you've seen him on the touchline when he was, I can't remember which game it was. It was one of their qualifiers. I can't remember which one, but it was a very important one. He was injured on the sideline, and he was shouting and cajoling and directing his teammates more than his own manager. And it's not a surprise. No. This guy's driven beyond belief, and that is infectious. So that alone is a massive plus for them. But they do have an aging squad. Spain, well, they have their own problems. They were absolutely hammered, their heaviest ever defeat against Argentina in their recent friendlies. And don't forget as well, Russia ran them ragged in the November friendly. It was a 3-3 draw, but 2 penalties were just scandalously given.
Andrew, Spain beat Argentina 6-1, didn't they?
Sorry, I got it wrong way around. Yeah, Spain did this. Of course it did. Spain were the ones who won 6. Oh, dear me. Sorry, I'm very tired. I should have made that slip.
But you're right, there are issues there. Like, one of the examples is the striker position in Spain with Morata and Diego Costa. That's not quite sorted out. Morata's been fairly poor this season. Not quite the standard I think Chelsea would have wanted. And Diego Costa, he didn't start until halfway through. He's missed a lot of football, so he's playing. He might be fresh for the World Cup, but I don't think that's been resolved. Maybe they'll play without a number 9. I'm not sure. Iniesta's going to be 34. The spine of the team, while strong, is also maturing, shall we say, quite rapidly.
Well, I think with Diego Costa, I kind of always was a fan of his. I know he got a lot of stick when he played in England, but I kind of like that. I like his
in your team. He's like the pantomime villain. I despised him, but he was. I didn't like Drogba either, but you'd have him in your team.
Well, exactly. You need an ugly player. There's no need to simply because there was, the very short passing, possession-based football that Spain had started to play, just over a decade ago or so. Why they don't have to always play that way. They have another option. Diego Costa is a player that is a nightmare to mark. You're a defender, and you've got the option of marking. Okay, just looking at their latest squad, their forwards: Rodrigo, Lucas Vazquez, Iago Aspas, or Costa. Well, Costa's just the one you don't want to face. How do you deal with him?
He seems to play almost just on the edge of within the rules, and seemed.
Yeah.
And whenever I very rarely would get sent off, but there was many times you think he should be off, but he just seemed to stay a fraction within.
Yeah.
But very effective, and I think actually Diego Costa. I think that was one of the problems for Chelsea this season. They really missed Diego Costa. One
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Morata. I think Morata is a quality player, and there's no question that he will improve. I don't know. I haven't followed his injury history, whether he's been picked up an injury or two this season, but he's a completely different type of player. He doesn't have the bite, but he has the quality.
He has the
But quite
quality,
frankly,
but he was never first choice at Madrid or Juventus, and to then take him in a very big move to Chelsea and say you're going to be the main man. It was a bit of a gamble, and I'm not sure Chelsea and the way they set up is the best for Morata. I'm not sure he's at the right club, but
well, yeah, I think you make a point there, Rob, because you've got the players like Willian and Eden Hazard at Chelsea. They need a focal point to draw attention away from themselves to create space. If you have too many of I'm not saying Willian and Hazard are exactly the same, or that they're exactly the same as Morata. They're not. There are subtle differences, but they're closer in style, at least. And you need a focal point. If you're going to have free roaming creative players like that behind to be effective, in my opinion, someone like Costa is absolutely ideal. I mean, we all know it was personal issues with Conte that led to it. On a playing sense, he is exactly what they need. And for Spain, I think it's not entirely dissimilar.
I could see someone like Lewandowski doing well at Chelsea. That if I was Chelsea, I'd probably be trying to get someone like him in. But anyway, not Chelsea's my concern.
But yes, so Rob, look, Spain and Portugal, we're both, I think, in relative agreement that we expect those to go through, right? Yeah. Now the question is the next round. Yeah. Now, for us living in Russia, Russia will play. If Russia qualify, of course, from Group A, they will play one of these two, we assume.
So we're looking possibly Russia-Portugal.
It could well be. I
would fancy. I think I'd fancy Russia in that game, if that was the case.
Would you rather Russia faced for Russia's hopes? Would you rather them face Portugal or Spain?
With answering the question without any thought and just off the top of my head, I would say Portugal. I would say Spain. Yeah.
I mean, this is a fascinating group to look at for me because on the surface it's very easy to call, but if you look slightly deeper, there are cracks you can find for each team. Portugal, like you mentioned, Portugal did win the Confederations Cup over here, so they've got that. They've played on Russian soil. That's a positive, and of course European champions. That's not bad either, but I always worry at times that while I made the point earlier that Ronaldo is he can almost drag an entire team by himself.
He's almost superhuman. Yeah.
Well, it is freakish what that man can do, and anybody
who criticizes him, he's amazing.
I mean, I every time I read any criticism of Ronaldo, I just think you really should just shut up. This is a man who, yes, he's obsessed with his image. Yes, he loves to curl his hair and shave his chest, whatever the hell it is. Who cares? The guy is so professional.
That's
Bear
right.
in mind,
yeah.
You've got Sir Alex Ferguson, who those two had a perfect relationship, and Ferguson would not suffer any fools. You know full well if he likes this guy, it's because he's got the right attitude. Yeah. If he wants a flashy image, he can have the flashy image. He's
doing the business already. And actually, one of the pundits I really enjoy is Roy Keane. I'm a big fan of Roy Keane, and any club that had Roy Keane in their team, I always felt had a chance. I think he was a big part of United's success, and I've liked him as a pundit. But you never hear Keane have a go at Ronaldo because he's a winner, and they've got a lot of similarities, although they're on the surface polar opposites. There's that drive in there that only the real top players have, and I think Roy Keane had that. And there's a respect there because he always talks well of Ronaldo.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I mean,
Paul Scholes is another one. It's sort of ingrained. Those
are the players that will win you tournaments.
Winners.
I mean, you look.
Winners.
I mean, just I mean, you just, again, ever so slightly off tangent,
Mm,
think back to 2002 World Cup
mm,
when Roy Keane had that famous falling out with Mick McCarthy.
mm.
Had Roy Keane stayed, just imagine what Ireland could have done. I mean, Ireland were
Quarterfinals,
fantastic. Roy Keane, hmm?
quarterfinals. I mean, they went out in the second round, but I think they'd have got into the quarters. And then
Well,
who?
I think so. I really think that someone like you mentioned, anybody of that characteristic, that mindset.
Yeah.
One of my favourite sentences, quotes, if you like, from
Mm,
football
mm.
was something that Sir Matt Busby said. And I know I'm going down the Manchester United route
That's
again,
all
but
right.
it really is. It is appropriate for the
Mm,
whole sport.
mm,
And he said um, the most important characteristic of of any footballer is character.
mm,
And it doesn't matter what club you are, it doesn't matter what style, what ethos you have.
mm.
I cannot understand anybody who would think otherwise because you can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't have the character to maintain it, use it in the right way,
Yeah.
drive your teammates forward, then it's as good as it's like speaking a language,
Yeah,
knowing the words,
and
but you
that
can't
always
pronounce.
brings me back to Roy Keane because although he was a very, very good player and he was a good passer of the ball, he wasn't shabby at all as a player. He wasn't technically blessed. You know, in his era, he had the likes of Zidane and Scholes and Figo and those sort of players. But Roy Keane was regarded as their equals, if not more. Um,
Yeah.
he was always somebody I grew up admiring, Roy Keane. Um, and also, you alluded to that famous island row, and you can say, well, Keane should have just sort of shut up and then voiced his problems afterwards, and there's an argument for that. But the root of Keane's frustrations were he wanted Ireland to be more professional. He's a
Yeah,
winner.
I, there's no question in my mind he was right in his principles. I everybody can judge him for what he said and did, but if you're in that situation,
Mm.
your principles are important, and they are to him. And I see Ronaldo in that same bracket,
Yeah,
and therefore I see Portugal benefiting, from that. So, um,
yeah. I mean,
well,
Ronaldo was injured in the final. He came off, but you saw him, remember, on the touchline, and it
yeah,
means so much to him. And that kind of charismatic figure, although you might have your manager, Ronaldo is the symbolic leader, really. Um,
yeah,
he'll probably go on and manage his country at some point because it means so much to him.
I wouldn't be surprised. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised one bit.
Mm.
No. Um, I mean, Rob, I'm just looking at the group fixtures here.
Mm.
We covered the first match day, Morocco,
Mm.
Iran, and Portugal, Spain. Those are obviously two key fixtures. But what do you, which other fixtures do you think are the most important ones here? I mean, I'm thinking really of Portugal's fixtures because you'd imagine Spain. Well, they are
That's
the
right.
strong.
I see. I've identified Portugal Morocco as a potential key game. It
Yeah,
really depends on the outcome of Iran Morocco because, for example, if those two draw, they've kind of cancelled each other out.
yeah,
For
exactly. Yeah,
either of them to get out of that group, that is a must-win game in that very first game.
yeah.
And although I'm tipping Morocco, Iran could definitely do it. There's not a lot in it.
Well, I think it's going to be fascinating because, like we mentioned about those two, Morocco and Iran being. I mean, they've in recent years at least
Mm,
have been more naturally defensive and containing and counter-attacking.
mm,
They both know this. They both know this is their chance. If they don't win it, they might as well forget going through anyway, and then why turn up in the first place? So we're going to see two countries, I think, first match day,
mm,
going to have to slightly break out of their natural style
mm,
to get what they need.
mm.
Whoever, I would say this: the winner of Morocco Iran, the next match day will be their match, will be the key game that could upset the apple cart, if anything.
Definitely.
Um, I mean, it's a tiny, tiny thing, and it won't make a lot of difference, I don't think. But Iran's game, the second match day against Spain in Kazan, of course, that's where Sardar Azmoun plays. It's where, well, they have a young guy, Reza Shakiri, who's not really played much for Rubin Kazan, but he is a youngster. I believe he's been in the Iran squad once, twice. Um,
So they could get
and
the local support there.
there might. It's not going to be anything like Maradona in Naples
No,
in
no.
Italian '90. Of course, it's not going to be remotely that scale,
Yeah.
but it might just make him feel a bit more positive. This is my ground. I'm going to prove something here. I mean, the World Cup should be enough by itself, but those little added tangibles, you never know how much they might affect him mentally.
It's
So,
I think nowadays with football and with science and with diets and with so much analysis and statistical stuff, games are won by tiny, tiny, fine margins these days.
Yeah,
And at top level football. So you never know. This tiny percent, it might make a difference. You just don't know. Um,
yeah.
Andrew, you said something about Spain and Portugal. Well, we both did. That they're sort of aging a little bit. The only thing with Spain is they don't give away goals. They're solid at the back. For me, they've got the best goalkeeper in the world, and
Yeah.
also they keep the ball very, very well. I mean, who keeps the ball better than Spain? Not. They're arguably one of the best teams at keeping the ball, and in that, there's not many people may realise, but the heat will be stifling at times, especially depending on kick-off. And I just think that will also go in Spain's favour. So I do see Spain. I see Spain making the semi-finals.
Well, I don't think you could really argue with that because they have. I mean, they will be looking at. I'm looking at the second round from a Russian perspective. Then, from a Spanish perspective, they'll be looking at Group A, thinking that's a relatively weak group. Uruguay, the most dangerous side, arguably, and they themselves they have obviously Suarez and Cavani, but they have some other players too. But as a country, they should be a very beatable potential group winner. Russia, they will look at Russia as a very beatable side too. So, I mean, once you get past the second round, suddenly quarterfinals, I'd say pretty much all form and standing goes out the window, really. It really is just preparation and mentality from there on in. So I don't see why not. Personally, of all the European sides, I have a seeking suspicion France will do very well.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But Spain, like you say, I'm not being biased. I really do think David De Gea is the best keeper in the world. His shot stop unbeaten.
Neuer was for many years, but for me, he's been overtaken. He's been injured as well. And De Gea, I think Man United, although they've picked up trophies in the last couple of years, Man United have been poor in the last 3 or 4 years. And I think De Gea has saved them a lot of points. And I think the situation would have been a lot worse without De Gea.
Undoubtedly, I think of any goalkeeper to have effectively saved a team as much as he has, I can't think of an example. Certainly not in high-profile competitions as David De Gea has for Manchester United. You take him out of the equation, and okay, Sergio Romero is an international goalkeeper with I think he's got about 100 caps for Argentina, and so he's not a bad keeper.
Yeah.
But you put him in the side, and you can instantly wipe off 10, 15 points from Manchester United.
It's day and night the difference between those two, and the goal is such a specialist position. There's very, very few, I think, top caliber goalkeepers of that ilk, and that's why now the prices are reflecting that. I mean, you look at sort of Oblak and one or two other top goalkeepers, and the prices going around, they're astronomical. And De Gea would cost an arm and a leg, and even Real Madrid want him, but it hasn't been easy. They can't just pluck him away from United because he's so valuable.
Well, I mean, I've been permanently worried the last 2 or 3 seasons about it. De Gea I saw a report yesterday, it's probably only a rumour at this stage, because every year, from pretty much now until August, there's always talk of either De Gea contract talks or Real Madrid interest. And I've almost become numb to it, immune to it, because it's just so repeated. But the fact that he stayed this long...
That's right. Because Madrid normally get their man, don't they? But this one's dragged on and on for a few years now.
Yeah, it's got to wind them up no end. I love Ferguson's quote saying, "I wouldn't sell them a virus" a few years ago, and I bet they're probably still ever so slightly sensitive about that.
No, eventually he did sell them, Ronaldo. Every player, I mean, eventually Real Madrid and Barcelona still, for me, hold the most sort of appeal. It's very difficult to turn those two down. And Manchester United is arguably the biggest club in the world with those two, so it's as broad as it's long. You know, if you're leaving Man United, where are you going to go? It's got to be one of those two.
Not many places. Madrid, unfortunately, probably would be one that you wouldn't begrudge him if he in the end he did go. It's not like he's just jumped ship at the first opportunity.
Right. No. He's been
what is it? 8 years now, 9 years even.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
he's gone from boy to man at Man United, like Ronaldo did.
yeah, it's very very similar actually. True. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, that's. I mean, I suppose we can look at the danger men of obviously Portugal. Ronaldo is the standout. Any other players in the Portugal side that could catch the eye?
I've always been a big fan of Bernardo Silva since he's this season. I've been really impressed by him because his form at Monaco, it was obvious he was going to go somewhere big, and
Is he the
then
natural long-term replacement for David Silva?
well, I think I would say he's possibly slightly. I see him more as a wide player cutting in than David Silva, but he could fill that creative role at least. And he's really actually started to play quite a lot recently. And I mean, there was a danger, I thought, in the first half of the season that he would start to get a little bit disenchanted with not getting much game time, and it might be really damage his career at this stage, because it's a critical age when you're this 23, 24. This is when you need to be getting towards hitting your peak.
Yeah.
But he is doing that. I tell you there's one other player I will mention, and I'm delighted that he's been recalled to the squad, is Manuel Fernandes. And again, the Russian link, he's been just sensational for Lokomotiv Moscow for the last 2 or 3 years, really. I know it's only the Russian league, but the guy he's an absolute monster. He cannot be, you can't muscle him off the ball. His intelligence is just a world above almost everybody else in the Russian league. He's developed an understanding with most of his teammates, the Miranchuk brothers in particular.
Yeah. Which position does he play?
Well, I mean, he plays out wide left, really, for Lokomotiv. But he could realistically play pretty much anywhere behind the front man, but predominantly from out wide. His set pieces are just fantastic. And I always liked him when he was at Portsmouth in England. When he had his long dreadlocked hair. Looked a bit different then. But he's matured a lot. And he deserves his place in that squad. Honestly, Portugal could do a lot worse than use him, if not starting, at least from the bench as an option. So those are the other two I'd pick out, Bernardo Silva and Manuel Fernandes for me.
Now, 2 years ago, obviously Portugal have been creeping up towards the age for a while, but 2 years ago there was a big sort of fuss and talk about Renato Sanchez. And when I watched him play, he caught the eye. The hair, obviously, but the way he played, he looked dynamic. There was lots of a big move to Manchester United. He eventually went to Bayern Munich. And then bizarrely ended up at Swansea City. What's happened to him? And will he be in that World Cup squad?
That's a tough question, to be honest. I think he's got a lot of competition, because that's where Portugal are strongest, isn't it, in midfield? I think it's touch and go, to be honest, because he has really struggled at Swansea. He needed a move away, and the reason he went to Swansea really could only be Paul Clement and his link to Carlo Ancelotti as his assistant. I can imagine a phone call between them. It's like, Paul, come on, you need to look after this kid, give him a boost, give him some game time. He gave him game time, and he hasn't really used it. So, I mean, he should be on top of the world right now. The sorry truth is that he isn't. I think he might struggle to make the squad. You've got Ruben Neves, who's been playing sensationally for Wolves, but that is in the second tier of English football. You've got João Mario. Yes, okay, he's had a bit of a fall from grace from Inter Milan, but he's a guy who has won the European Championships. You've got João Moutinho, you've got Andre Gomes, William Carvalho is a defensive player.
I like is it the Valencia wing back? Is it Cancelo?
Yes, he's.
Or was he left Valencia? I can't remember now.
I think he may play on the right. He's Inter own him. He was on loan at Valencia.
Yeah, he had a good. Valencia were doing well this year, and he was shining.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the benefits of a loan. We talk about Sanchez on loan at Swansea. Okay, it's a lower key loan, but Valencia were, they've not been. Again, another club who've not been at the level they were 10, 15 years ago. But this season, they've been just absolutely on fire. Kondogbia in midfield there has been part of a resurgent side. And there's a guy who's played for this this team. Cancelo will be he's a rapid player.
Yeah.
Him getting forward on the right could be a dangerous option.
And you
So
mentioned Wolves as well. They've got a striker as well on loan. Is it Diego Jota?
yeah, this is part of the Jorge Mendes
Mm.
deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've not seen the guy play. I'll be honest. But yeah, the fact that he's got powerful links,
Yeah.
shall we say? I mean, it should really be. Of course, it should be on playing ability and character, but the influence of being around quality will help. Now, being at Wolves, okay, it's not quite the highest quality, but the fact is that he has connections. I mean, I can't say much more about his playing style because I've not seen
So,
him a
I
lot.
mean,
Like I say,
I can't sit here and say I'm an expert in Portuguese football because I'm not. But maybe we will see some up and coming players coming through that we're not aware of, that the Portuguese supporters will obviously have an inside knowledge, and maybe we'll see one or two new faces as well. That's always the joy of a World Cup. You get these surprises, players that
yeah,
come out of nowhere. So,
yeah,
um,
absolutely,
and it is time
absolutely.
for a new cycle with Portugal. And then Spain. For me, Spain have an abundance of young talent coming through, but I still see them going with the older guard in the first 11.
Well, I mean, they could put out. They're one of the two or three sides in the world that could put out two or three 11s that would still challenge for the latter stages of
Yeah,
the World Cup.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, their midfield is just. Yeah, I'm almost annoyed at them for hoarding this much talent. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, Iniesta and his experience, he doesn't need the pace. Obviously, his
no,
style of play, sitting on the ball, controlling, dictating, he allows the others to do. Um, well, do whatever they do. Isco is a player I really love this guy.
yeah,
When I saw him in November
yeah,
in St. Petersburg, God, he was just lethal.
yeah.
He is seriously dangerous. That's the thing. They've got the experienced guys are still useful. In
That's
their
right.
position.
I
They
mean,
can still.
I've always loved David Silva of Man City. I think he's a wonderful player. Love watching him play. I lived in Spain for a year last year. Saw a lot of Senio. He's a fantastic player as well. I think.
Yes,
I mean, I think he's the reason why Madrid will probably let Bale go. Um,
could well do. Yeah,
so Spain are set up for the next 10, 15 years. They're in fine fettle. They get things right at grassroots level. So they're just constant. It's like a conveyor belt.
yeah.
Same as Germany. Doesn't matter what the year is. Germany, even in transition, Germany will be a challenge. Um,
Yeah, it's rather dispiriting, isn't it? Just looking at there was that tweet I saw that went out about a month ago saying this is Germany's fourth choice 11, and they weren't lying. They really did actually lay out
yeah,
first, second, third, fourth 11.
yeah.
And I looked at the fourth 11. I thought I honestly couldn't say hand and heart that England could beat them.
No.
They might challenge, but it's
We just
just.
beat Iceland, Andrew. So I've got nothing surprises me with England.
But Jim will tell you that's a logical result though when Jim comes on for that issue.
Yeah. My four for the semi-final, very, very boring, I'm afraid, but I see it as France, who I tipped actually my dark horse to win it. France, Spain, Germany, and I think Brazil. Brazil looks strong again, so I'm going for those four.
Yeah, I really want to be completely and utterly biased and say Russia will get there, but no, don't think so. Um, I, I'd be honest, I can't really disagree a lot with that. France, like I mentioned earlier, definitely think they are going to surprise people. The only thing that holds me back with supporting France for out and out winners is just simply they have not shown mental strength to really go through a full tournament
No,
for some time.
no, but these
Um,
things can be changed. They went into the World Cup in '98 under huge pressure. They hadn't done anything in 14 years, and they ended up winning it.
True. Yeah,
And
very
these
true.
things have
They
to
they they
change.
they've got match winners. They've got
They've got
another.
very strong. They've got a big pool of talent there to work with.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, France certainly. Spain, I wouldn't disagree. With Germany is an
What I like
automatic.
about France is they've got a lot of players in that mid 20 age group, and there's a lot of pace in that side.
I mean, it's again, it's not an obvious choice, but Kylian Mbappe was just absolutely breathtaking against Russia.
Yeah.
The last international break, I've never seen such a freakishly good player, especially at that
At
age.
that age, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
That,
France definitely.
all right, Andrew. That wraps up Group B. And just very briefly, while I've got you on, you are now in the TFF game world. How does that feel? You pleased to be in it?
Oh,
Took you a while.
it did indeed. I'll tell you what, I had a thrilling 2-2 draw with Blackpool away to Sheffield United.
Yeah, you've
So
actually just in one game you had a huge say on a pivotal moment of the season. You've cost them the title.
well, I didn't actually realise it was the title was in the balance,
Yeah,
as I was actually 2-1 up with about 25 minutes to go. Two of my ringers that I managed to sign since joining scored: Per Mertesacker and Ruslan Rotan, both of whom will probably be retired by the end of the season. But they've got me a point, so I'm happy with that.
yeah.
But yeah,
You've taken
delighted to be
on.
in.
I think Blackpool wasn't a bad setup. I think the previous manager was. I haven't actually even looked at your team. Colin Greenwood was the previous
Well,
manager.
yeah, I mean it's he basically the previous manager had done some quite sensible signings, not
Yeah,
thrillingly exciting, but he'd
no.
done quite a lot of free transfers, so they had good sell on value.
And
But
yeah, there's a bit of
they
value to work with for you.
yeah, so
Mm,
I've managed to move on three or four of them
mm,
to make about 3 million worth of spending money,
yeah,
and I've reinvested most of that. So it was it wasn't a side that was going to get anywhere, but it could be made into something. So we did lay
yeah.
some good foundations.
And
So
you
I
get a
guess I'm
decent
grateful for that.
crowd there as well. There's a decent gate there. I'm going to say it now, but I expect you to go up next season. I think you'll be one of the promotion
Well,
teams.
I appreciate the backing. I do have some. I've got some big names coming in. I've
Yeah,
got Carlos Kameni in goal. I've got Musa Sow up front coming in.
yeah. You're going to have a
Um,
much higher rated team than my side. My average rating is 83, and then and that's an 11, and then below that 11, it's all 70s, young 70s. I think so. I'm
I
looking
mean,
at the top half at best, but I see your team being quite strong.
well, the reason why I'm really pleased to have joined
Mm,
this game world, Rob,
mm,
is that well, first and foremost, it's a well-run game world, and for well-run game worlds, you can afford to play a slightly longer game and
yeah,
have the
that's
younger
right.
players. So,
Yeah,
I'm usually in the camp that goes for the younger, longer term approach,
yeah.
but because I don't know what it is about Blackpool. It felt like a team I needed to move forward more quickly because it's a long season,
Yeah.
and I don't want to get lost in the. I want my attention to be on the game world as much as
It's the
possible.
game
So
mode. It's for me the best game mode there is, and I've created a few myself, and you've enjoyed one or two of them. But TFF is so interactive and sociable. It's really addictive. It's the one result I look for first, and
yeah,
I think you will enjoy all the elements of it.
no, it looks a cracking game world.
And we'll
You've
get you
told
on
me
the
all.
panel show, Andrew, at some point. You'll be really good on that.
Say again, sorry.
We do the panel show, which the only
All
game
right, okay.
has one, and we'll get you on that as well. So we'll get you,
Oh, definitely,
yeah. Um, so,
absolutely.
so anyway, mate, good luck for that for TFF, and we'll try and arrange because you've got a busy itinerary, busy schedule. We'll try and arrange a date for Group C, the next one.
Cool. Absolutely
Um,
looking forward to that.
can't remember who's in Group C. Who's that?
Uh, my mind slipped myself. I need to do more research on this. But
Yeah,
Group C is Peru, Denmark, France, and Australia. Actually, I'm looking forward to that one because
Peru,
um,
Denmark, France, and
France
Australia. Right.
and
Well,
Australia.
for that one, there's a couple of Aussies in TFF, so we'll try and get them on as well.
That would be good actually. I'd be
Mm,
interested to see because they've got
mm.
what's it? Bert van Marwijk has come in, who's just for the World Cup as manager. So yeah, we've got our favourites. Well, I say one of our favourites, France,
Yeah,
Peru, Denmark, Australia. I would say
can't
that's
call
going to
that.
be
I think that'll be an interesting group. That'll be a tough one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot more intangibles in that one. So looking
yeah.
forward to that.
Cool. All right, Andrew, let's leave it there, and I'll catch you in the next week or so.
Brilliant. Good
Cheers,
to
mate.
chat, Rob.
Thanks a lot.